It was a normal day in Ponyville. Octavia spent time with her friend Vinyl. She has just regularly come home from a concert in Manhattan for the past couple of days, and now she wanted to relax and spend some time with her friends. Even though that this day, Vinyl said that she couldn't spend time with Octavia since she was had to do some practice for her upcoming DJ party that Pinky was going to arrange. So Octavia felt a little bit okay with that, so she decided to go take a walk in town to see if there was anything else she could do. So she came across in the park when she saw her friend Jasmine Leaf. Jasmine Leaf was sitting outside her own small tea shop, and Octavia walked up to her and they started small talk, and then Jasmine asked if Octavia would like to have some tea with her, and Octavia agreed. Since Octavia is more usually do drink tea with either herself or with Jasmine. They went inside her shop and they picked some of the tea that they preferred to have. Since it was a nice day, so they decided to sit outside and just enjoy the day. Jasmine Leaf was actually coordinator, very interested to know more about Octavia's time in Manhattan for the past couple of days, even though Jasmine didn't mind to hear about Octavia's time. Octavia herself actually did mention all her time in Manhattan, mostly about even some of her performance at the audience always loved her music. Then Jasmine asked what she did during after, since since she understood that most of the concert didn't take place at the evening, some could have been taking place sometime early afternoon or about noon. So Octavia did mention that after those concerts, which usually was over early, she usually walks around in town in Manhattan to relax and or just go to her hotel room to relax. Even though when Jasmine did ask if Octavia would play something else, maybe something different like country music. Even Octavia were more for classical type of music, but she said she usually had played country music sometimes in the past. Even though she do enjoy the country music to listen to. Then Octavia actually asked Jasmine. Since Jasmine has been dating a stallion for the past 2 years, so Octavia asked her how things going between her and her boyfriend. Jasmine said it was going quite well between them. They usually don't see as often since he works in Baltimore for some times, since he's actually originally from Baltimore but has spent time in Ponyville from time to time. So she was expecting him to be back on Friday so that they can spend some time. Octavia asked how long he will be staying in town this time, and she said over the weekend. Hopefully maybe for a week, depends for if he has some time off that. Octavia said that she was actually looking forward to hear more about her boyfriend, or perhaps maybe seeing and meeting him in personally. Since for most time Octavia hasn't even seen her Jasmine's boyfriend before. Then the due fact since most of that since Octavia is either practice at home or she is away for the concert either in some big cities. And since Jasmine's boyfriend lives quite far away and he always can go to see her maybe once or twice in a month. And sometimes during the time when gets to Ponyville, Octavia is usually away. But this time she hopes to be able to meet him. So after they had their tea, they still small talk some more longer. And after that, they actually said goodbye to each other. And Octavia decided to walk around in town and stopped by the park just to relax and felt since it's a nice warm day, so she decided to stay at the park just to relax. And a couple of days later, when Octavia was on a walk in town, She noticed Jasmine Leaf was walking with a stallion. Jasmine saw her and waved to her, and Octavia walked up to Jasmine, and and sure enough, the stallion that Jasmine was walking with, in fact, wasn't her boyfriend. And Octavia did, in fact, admit he was quite handsome. He's well mannered, and he actually were a carpenter from Baltimore. There was something about him that she couldn't put it. There was something not off about him, but just something unusual. He showed a lot of charisma, a lot of passion even in his work. When when Jasmine invited Octavia if she wanted to maybe have a lunch with them. Since Octavia didn't have any plans for that day, so she agreed. And at the restaurant, they actually start talking, and Octavia did ask Jasmine's boyfriend some questions about his type of work. And when he spoke about his job, he spoke with such passion about it. He was actually well trained, and he was actually taught by his grandfather at when he was young age. And he actually did a lot of kinds of things, like often it was furniture or maybe small decorations of animals, birds, something like that. Even though Octavia did enjoy her Jasmine's boyfriend's company, even though Jasmine did actually was happy to see that Octavia liked his company. After lunch, they said goodbye to each other, and Octavia actually did thought that Jasmine's boyfriend was quite well mannered, but there was something about him that she couldn't put it. And only a few days later, of course, Jasmine's boyfriend left town, went back to Baltimore to work. But then something did happen. This was only about a month later when Jasmine was sitting outside her shop when Octavia walked by and saw that Jasmine wasn't even happy. She always smiles at her friends or say hi to them when they're walking by or she's not talking. But this time, she was the opposite. She was just sitting there, silent. And for the first time in a while, she wasn't even smiling. Octavia was now a little bit worried, so she walked up to Jasmine and asked if something was wrong. But Jasmine shook her head and said, "Nothing is wrong, I just feel a bit tired, that's all." But even though Octavia could sense it was something else, but she didn't want to push her friend too far in this questioning. So she agreed to at least let that be. But there was something in her mind after she walked away from that. She sometimes walked still backwards for a couple of times and still seeing Jasmine had even moved. But as she was so far away, she could see that Jasmine just stood up. Even though she was so far away, she could see that Jasmine was crying. And before she could do anything, she went back in the store and locked it and put the sign for closed. And this is the very first time Jasmine had closed the store so early. Since she lived above her own store, she couldn't do anything to do with it. So Jasmine was crying. That was the first time ever Octavia saw that. But of course, she didn't want to be pushing her friend to the limit to ask her about it. But at what she didn't know, that question would one day actually appeared in front of Jasmine. For only a couple of days later, when Jasmine was in her store and Octavia went to buy some tea, when she saw that Jasmine still wasn't even smiling. Even though she tried to smile to Octavia, but the smile slowly faded away. And even before she had bought her tea, she did ask Jasmine if something was wrong, because she could now see something what actually bothered her. even though she didn't want to be pushing her friend, but she was very worried about her friend now. So she asked her. It turned out just after that Jasmine's boyfriend had returned back home, he had actually decided to break up with her. Didn't have any feelings for her anymore, and after they had been together for so long, and he decided just to leave like that, she was very devastated. And Octavia, she had no idea. But she told her friend things like this happens all the time. Yasmin said that she understood that, and just before Octavia then left the store, she asked her if maybe she wanted maybe come over to have some tea. But Yasmin shook her head and said that nothing. She just said things, but I prefer to be alone. So Octavia had to accept that. But she said once before she left, if she still wants to have come over to have some tea, she's always welcome, no matter what time it is. And of course, Octavia didn't know that, but only about 2 days later, Octavia heard a knock on the door, middle of the night, at least middle of the evening, around 7 p.m. And Vinyl was not even in town by the time, so she believed that it was not. She knows it wasn't Vinyl, because if it was Vinyl, she would have own key open the door. But this was somehow a guest. As at the door, it was in fact Jasmine Leaf. She asked if she could come inside to have tea with Octavia as the offers to last. And of course she said yes. In the living room, Vinyl Octavia was actually trying to talk to Jasmine Leaf about what's happened over the past few days. But even though Jasmine didn't say much, she was quiet for most. She only said a few sentences that she still missed her boyfriend, but she realized it was no way for him to go back with him. And but then Octavia said, maybe you should try to at least maybe find some pony else to be with. Maybe try to go out and dating again to see if there was any pony that you'd be with. But then Jasmine started to cry a lot more than last time. She said that no pony would really want to be with her because since her last boyfriend broke up with her like that, she has no trust in any ponies to be with anymore. And after that, she stopped crying and just remained silent. Octavia then looked at the fire at the open home, at the open fire, and said, "You know, Yasmin, if it was me, I would have to come out with you, just to make you really happy again." And Jasmine was puzzled. She was amazed at the statement from Octavia. She really didn't know exactly what to see or it is expecting from that. Even though Octavia was just saying that because she would. And when she turned around and saw that Jasmine was now crying again, and she asked if something was wrong, she really said only a few words. "You really would go out with me?" she said, while still crying. Octavia smiled and said that she would. Then Vine Octavia actually did ask her out, and they decided to go to the movies just to have something to do. So, on Friday, was only 2 days away from that, they decided to go down. On Friday, they actually went to the movies, and it was something that sparked something new between them. At the movies, they decided to choose a comedy movie. Even though by Octavia expected maybe this would maybe work or something, but she would do anything to cheer up her friend at any point or any way that she could. And of course, it worked. Even despite during the movies, both of them laughed so much that they almost fell out of seats. Even afterwards, they went to a small diner to have a small restaurant nearby to have something to eat. And of course, Octavia actually felt happy to see her friend smiling. But then, but then they both decided maybe try being dating for a while to see if it was something that it could be a spark between them. And Jasmine smiled for once, and this was in fact a real happy smile, the first she had in a while. And only a couple of days later, every pony in town was aware about Jasmine was now dating Octavia. But at first they was not aware exactly why suddenly Octavia was dating Jasmine. But after a while they will all find out exactly why and what happened. Every other friends were actually stunned to hear that Jasmine's ex-boyfriend just left her like that. But at least she's happy to be with someone else now. Most of the time, Jasmine actually was felt happy for once. She usually smiled, singing while she was working at her tea shop. And of course, even when Octavia came by to see how things was going for her, made her smile even more and happier. The relationship between Octavia and Jasmine Leaf remained so strong, despite what happened, and especially when Vinyl came home only a couple of days after Octavia's first date, when she was told about her Jasmine being dating now. Vinyl just smiled and said, "Well, is this the best for you? I mean, after all, she is a very kind pony actually to see. So I don't think this could have been a bad moment. I'm just happy for both of you." And even after all, Vinyl gave her biggest support to her roommate and Yasmin. Even after so much pain that Yasmin had suffered when her boyfriend just left her like that. All those wounds was now healed by the love from Octavia. The love between Octavia and Jasmine has only been growing and growing stronger from each single day. But the words of thought about in Jasmine's mind. If this relationship was ever going to last any longer, but what she didn't know, it was actually going to last even longer. After they had been together for nearly 4 years, Jasmine and Octavia actually went on a cruise to celebrate their 4 years anniversary, and this cruise lasted for a whole weekend, and it was just the thing they wanted to do. Octavia wanted to do something special for her and Jasmine's their anniversary for their to celebrate. Usually they were probably back in town to have dinner or maybe something else, but this time she wanted to do something more special. So she decided to do that. So Octavia had asked around if there was any ideas that could she do, and some of her friends actually suggested a cruise, which she then did. And when she told Jasmine about this idea, she loved it. She hasn't been on a cruise in such a long time. And even though Vinyl Octavia actually has something else planned in mind. The only pony who knows about this big plan was in fact her roommate Vinyl. Vinyl actually had in fact suggested about this idea that Octavia should propose to Jasmine. After all, they have been together for 4 years and the love for each other has only been growing stronger. And Vinyl could sense that even if Octavia did propose to Jasmine, she would say yes immediately. Even after this idea, Octavia first thought maybe it wasn't just a bad idea, So she managed to buy a ring in secret. Even though on the cruise, she decided to do that on the last day before they returned back to Maid Haddon. But it was something that she didn't expect to happen. In fact, on this cruise, it turned out that Jasmine was expecting something special would happen, but she never expected this. Because when they were watching the sunset on the deck, Octavia then proposed to Jasmine. And when she did, she was right. Vinyl was right. Because when Octavia asked Jasmine, and she said yes immediately, she was couldn't be more happy to be with some pony like Octavia. A pony that really loved her more than anything. But especially like Octavia. They decide to have their wedding in Ponyville within the next few months, so that everything has been ready. Vinyl was going to be Octavia's bridesmaid, and Jasmine had asked her friend Rarity to be her bridesmaid, which she said yes. They had their wedding in Ponyville at the city hall, and it was just a great moment. And especially at the party when all their friends could actually see how happy they were together. But there was something about this new start of his marriage that Octavia really had hoped it would happen. Because it later turned out Octavia had been planned or even thought about propose to Jasmine for a whole year. But she was just a bit afraid if she was ready enough to begin to ask her or if they had been together long enough to be able to ask the question. But as they were now with Bird now married and she couldn't be happy now. Even after all of this, they could have been happier. They even went to a tropical island for their honeymoon, which they swam around in the ocean, just laying on the beach, just enjoying the resting like that, and even do some sightseeing. But they were both happy to have started a new chapter in their life. After they'd been married for about maybe for 2 years, they decided they wanted to have a family. And now since Jasmine and Octavia did actually in fact live together in Jasmine's home, they decided they wanted to have a family. So they asked Twilight for help. Since Twilight had helped unmarried couples in the past, so she agreed. Vinyl became pregnant first of all. She had a daughter, and only about 5 years later, Jasmine had a baby, and she in fact had a boy. Even after that, Jasmine and Octavia was really happy to be with some pony like they loved the most. And especially when they made Vinyl the godmother to both their daughter and their son. Even after they expecting that their even Vinyl was thought maybe have a bad influence on her godly kids, but no. She respected and she protected her godchildren as much as she could. Even if Octavia haven't found out about, or at least told Jasmine about if she would have been considered dating her, she may not have been found her true soulmate within Jasmine. If Jasmine hadn't been asked by that, she may have not even encountered or even found her true love. And that is one something that she really is happy that Octavia did ask her. The love between Octavia and Jasmine Leaf after all this had just remained so strong, and their love was so pure, so beautiful. And this is how Octavia Melody and Jasmine Leaf found a true love, got a big family together. The end.